Okay, welcome to the October 13, 2021 regular board meeting of the Chino Valley Fire District Board of Directors. The time is 4:02 p.m. Please make sure your microphones are on silent and remember to talk directly into, or I'm sorry, these microphones are on and talk directly into them, everyone. And you can turn them off when you're not speaking. I will now open and take roll call. Director Williams.
Here.
Director Luth.
Here.
Director DeMonico.
Here.
Vice President Krieger is running a few minutes late, and myself present. So before I adjourn the open session to closed session portion of the meeting, I will read the closed session item. Conference with labor negotiators. Meet with the board's appointed negotiators, Acting Fire Chief Dave Williams, Finance Director Steve Heidi, and Human Resource Director Christy Kuchara regarding negotiations between the Teamsters Local 1932 non-safety unit employees in the Chino Valley Fire District per Government Code Section 54957.6. Conference with labor negotiators. Meet with the board's appointed negotiator, Acting Fire Chief Dave Williams, Finance Director Steve Heidi, and Human Resource Director Christy Kuchara regarding negotiations between the Chino Valley Professional Firefighters Local 3522 CVPF Safety Unit and the Chino Valley Fire District per Government Code Section 54957.6. And conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The Board of Directors will meet with its designated negotiator, Acting Fire Chief Dave Williams, regarding real property owned by the City of Chino Hills and located on an undeveloped parcel located on the south side of Soquel Canyon at the intersection of Soquel Canyon and Pipeline Avenue. The Board of Directors will instruct the district's negotiators concerning the price and terms of payment. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, paragraph 1 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, name of case, City of Chino versus the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, San Bernardino Superior Course case number CIVDS 1917019. For the record, Dave Williams will replace Chief Dave Williams will replace Chief Tim Shackelford as negotiator on all closed session items as read. Do we have any public comment on the closed session items?
We have no comment.
I will now adjourn the open session to closed session. We'll return to the open session at 6 p.m. Okay, welcome to the October 13th. Let me just make sure. October 13, 2021 regular board meeting of the Chino Valley Fire District Board of Directors. The time is 6:01 and we will now begin the meeting. We adopted a proclamation at the regular September board meeting proclaiming the month of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I would like to thank everyone for their support in wearing pink tonight. Thank you, everybody. So I will now open the meeting and take roll. Director Williams.
Here.
Director Luth.
Here.
Director DeMonico.
Here.
Vice President Krieger.
Here.
Myself present. And legal counsel, can you please report on a closed session?
Yes, members of the public, the board met in closed session earlier this afternoon and there was no action that's required to be reported out.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I'm going to ask if Vice President Krieger would please lead us in the flag salute.
Please join me, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if everyone can please remain standing, I'm going to invite Chaplain Ruben Estrada. He's joining us this evening to present the invocation.
Let's bow our heads. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you with our hearts full of praise and adoration, for you are a God of mercy and love and grace. Lord, we are grateful that we know that if we come to you in prayer, humbly, you will hear us. Dear Heavenly Father, we pray that you bless this Board of Directors meeting, Lord. If there are any decisions to be made, that you will guide them, Lord, to make those decisions. And if there's difficult decisions to be made, Lord, may you grant them the grace to find those favorable decisions, favorable solutions for those decisions that need to be made, Lord. We thank you for giving us this day and for giving us every day, because you are life and you give us life and you give us everything that we have, everything that we need, you provide. We thank you for all these things in Jesus' most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain Estrada. Clerk of the board, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yes, we have one change. We would like to pull item number 9 from new business. Presentations and announcements, Employee Service Award. This evening, we're recognizing one service award recipient for 20 years, Administrative Sandy Wodark. Unfortunately, she was unable to join us this evening, but we will still be recognizing her for 20 years of service.
Okay, and thank you very much. And although Sandy wasn't able to join us, we would like to recognize her for her 20 years of service. Sandy Warwick began her career with the Fire District in 2001. She supports our Community Risk Reduction Department as an administrative secretary. Thank you, Sandy, for your 20 years of service to the Fire District. And Chief Williams, did you want to add a little something in at all for Sandy? Yeah.
I would, thank you. Since I've been here, Sandy has been one of the most helpful, committed, respectful, and professional individuals that I've had an opportunity to work with. And that's both from my experience of working on the floor and now being in the office. So, Sandy, we thank you very much. We're sorry we couldn't be here with you, or you couldn't be here with us, rather. But we thank you very much for your service.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next item, public hearing, properties declared for weed abatement. Purpose is to receive public comment on the declaring and noticing of property owners for weed abatement. And Deputy Fire Marshal Austin Ott, please present your report.
President Ramos-Savager, members of the board, good evening. Resolution number 2021-26 was adopted at the regular board meeting held on September 8th, 2021, identifying properties declared for weed abatement within the fire district. Property owners were sent notices informing them of the hazards and have been given until October 13th, 2021 to abate the said hazards. Re-inspections will commence on or after October 13th, 2021, and any properties found to be non-compliant will be assessed a penalty and are subject to be cleared by our private contractor. It is recommended that the Board of Directors receive public comment on the declaring and noticing of property owners for weed abatement, as well as make any rulings on any and all objections raised regarding the proposed removal of weeds. I'm available for questions if needed.
Okay, all right, so this will open the public, the hearing. It's now open. Clerk of the board, do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
We have
at
no
all?
public comments.
Okay, all right. And the public hearing is now closed. This is the time for board to comment. Director Williams?
Oh, I think I was already on. Okay, thank you. The only question I have is, it seems like we just finished the weed abatement stuff. Is this once a year deal, or is this more than once a year?
This is twice a year, so we do a spring season and a fall season.
Have there been any weeds growing? We haven't had any rain.
Yes, there have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fall is typically tumbleweeds, and they find moisture just about anywhere.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Director Luth?
Same comment as always, just appreciate the diligent effort, and, yeah, that's it, just thank you.
Director DeMonico?
Yes, it's not twice a year, it's year-round anymore, so thank you for your hard work.
Vice President Krieger?
I appreciate it as well. No other comments.
Okay, and myself, thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate the report tonight.
Thank you.
Public communications. This is a time and place for the general public to address the Board of Directors about subjects that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. The public may address items on the agenda at the time addressed by the board. Due to board policy and Brown Act requirements, action may not be taken on any issue not on the agenda. When you address the board, please state your name and address prior to making your remarks. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And do we have any requests to speak? Okay, seeing none, liaison reports. And I'm gonna call on Chairman Charlie Blank, Fire Safe Council.
I'm wearing pink, you know, so
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
the other guys would have beaten me up. If they could catch me. Anyway, very short and sweet. We had our brush pickup in the fall. It was not as well attended as ones in the past, but we think we may be a victim of our own circumstances because a lot of people are using those black barrels on a rotational basis rather than wait for this. But we still picked up about 2,500 pounds of trees, brush, and whatever else people came with. So it was a successful day, and we look forward to doing it at the end of April again. It's like Wynn Williams said, this is a year-round thing almost. So thank you very much.
And Charlie, just so everybody knows, you guys volunteer in your time and you sit there next to the big dumpster and help put the stuff in. It's not like it's somebody's doing this. So I want that known, that it's all based on volunteerism, as far as, helping get that stuff in the dumpster. And I appreciate you were there every single time, unless you were on your world tour of your golf courses, right?
No, I've actually not missed one, but
Okay.
what's nice now is that we have younger guys who push it in, and I kind of just show them where to put it, But thanks a lot, I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our liaison reports. Next item, consent calendar.
Okay. Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar?
We have no comments.
Okay. If any board member wishes to pull an item from the consent calendar, please state your name and item number you wish to pull.
Wynn Williams, number 7.
Okay, so anybody else? Is that it? Okay, so at this time, I would like to request a motion for the remaining items with the exception of 7.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay, second. I'll do a roll call voice vote. Director Williams?
I vote yes.
Director Luth?
Yes.
Director DeMonico?
Yes.
Vice President Krieger?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, so item number 7.
Thank you very much. I was really quizzing Steve Heidi earlier before the meeting started about his job and who's going to replace him and all that kind of stuff. And on this number 7 here, what are the changes that we're talking about on these requirements? That's all I was wanting to know.
Our HR director is out today, so I'll go ahead
Thank you.
and sub on that. So what we're doing here, Director Williams, is ensuring consistency with other management positions and requiring the bachelor's degree. So that is the thrust of the change, plain and simple.
Okay, so right now there's no bachelor's degree required?
It's highly desirable at this
Okay.
point.
Okay, so it will be absolutely required then?
It'll be a requirement of the position. Yes.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you very much.
Okay, so would you like to request a motion then to proceed with this item, Director Williams?
Oh, yes, I'd like to proceed with, that we go ahead and approve number 7, please.
Okay, so I have a motion for 7. Do I have a second? Okay, Director Williams, do you agree to this? Yes or no?
I say yes.
Okay, Director Luth?
Yes.
Director DeMonico?
Yes.
Vice President Krieger?
Yes.
And myself. Item 7 passes 5-0.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Yeah.
Now that we're back in public, do you need to do roll call vote? Anyone?
You do not need to.
Okay,
Thank you.
Right.
Historically,
It's up to the president's discretion on how she or he might want to do it.
Well, we're required to take a voice vote by
Yeah.
each board member.
That doesn't have to be roll call vote.
no, but I like to annoy you.
I'm just asking.
No, thank you.
For some items, you might want to, but
Okay.
for others.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
But it does help us, though, when transcribing for the record. It helps, but we could simplify that if you'd like in the future. We can talk about that.
Right.
Old business, none. New business, item number 9. We'll skip over that as it was pulled from the agenda. Item number 10. Overview of plan to transition fire district from at-large to by-division elections and adoption of boundary map. Purpose is to provide the Board of Directors with an overview of the fire district's plan to transition from an at-large to a by-division election and adopt a boundary map pursuant to the California Voting Rights Act and associated statutes, and present a schedule for the process to complete this transition. Legal counsel Jeff Ballinger, please present your report.
Good evening, President Ramos Evinger and board members and members of the public. I believe we have a PowerPoint presentation. We also have Jeff Simonetti, I hope I got that name right, from National Demographic Corporation, NDC. They are demographic consultants, and he will answer any questions about the numbers and things that lawyers are not good at. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is really to kind of brief the board on the status of our redistricting process and give you some of the key dates that we'll be going forward with on the redistricting process.
Good evening, President Ramos and the Board of Directors. My name is Jeff Simonetti, and I'm with the National Demographics Corporation. And we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening to give you an introduction to the districting process. And tonight, what we'd like to do is to give you an introduction as to, first of all, why the Chino Valley Independent Fire District is considering the voluntary transition to by-district elections. And I want to make sure that's a key point. As we'll talk about here in a bit, there's an impetus and a legal reason why many districts are making this transition, but a lot of these districts are being legally forced to, whereas you guys are making the voluntary transition, and that's an important distinction. We'll also talk about some of the key project timelines and deadlines, and there's also a sequence of next steps and hearings that we need to follow. So when we talk about election systems, right now the districts there are no districts. So each one of the board of directors is elected at large throughout the entire basis of the district. When we talk about going to districts, it would mean that we would break up the entirety of the district into particular districts, and that each one of the people who are in that would have a particular area that they would be voted into. And there's a specific legal reason, as I mentioned, as to why we are making that transition. And it specifically relates to the California Voting Rights Act, and that encourages by-district elections. So the California Voting Rights Act is an extension of the Federal Voting Rights Act, which was passed in 1965 and is the basis for many of the voting rights changes that we've seen. What the California Voting Rights Act changed, and it was passed in 2002, is it makes it significantly easier for plaintiffs to force jurisdictions to go into by-district election systems. And there was a Supreme Court case called the Gingles case, which said there are 4 tests that would determine whether you need to move into a by-district election or not. The California Voting Rights Act removes 2 of those. And so the only thing that would have to be determined right now, and liability is determined about that, is what we call the presence of racially polarized voting. So here it says, does the protected class vote as a block? And the voters who are not in the protected class vote in a block to defeat preferred candidates of the protected class. So there have been pretty significant consequences here associated with the California Voting Rights Act and the impact. So you are absolutely not alone in terms of districts that are making the transition from at-large to by-district elections. So there are at least 240 school districts, 34 community college districts, 154 cities, 1 county board of supervisors, and at least 35 water and other special districts that are making this either have made this transition or are in the process of making this transition. There have also been some pretty high-profile legal cases and some big-time key settlements that have taken place. The most high-profile one is the case in Santa Monica, which is still going through the process of appeals right now. It's at the at the state Supreme Court, and they have spent an estimated $7 million in legal fees so far. In addition, the plaintiffs in Santa Monica have requested $22 million in legal fees after the original trial. And there have been some key settlements. The City of Palmdale settled for $4.7 million, and the list goes down. There have been approximately $16 million in total settlements and court awards so far. So there's a legal impetus and a financial impetus to look at moving towards from at-large to by-district elections. So how does that process take place? There are a few steps. So we're in the introductory hearing tonight, the introductory report, but we'll have 2 initial pre-draft hearings. So those will be on November 17th and December 8th. And those will be held prior to the release of draft maps. And at this point, we'll be providing education and we'll be soliciting input from the general public as well as the board on what are the communities that you have within your district, and more specifically, what are those communities that you want to keep together within a specific district. So we'll have 2 hearings associated with that. Then we will also be asking for public comments about draft maps and if there are particular ways that the general public or the board have an idea on how they'd want to draw their maps. We'll release those draft maps, and then there'll be 2 hearings associated with those draft maps. We have that scheduled for January 12th and February 9th. And then map adoption we have scheduled for March 9th of next year. So when we talk about how the redistricting process takes place, there are really, for special districts such as yours, there are really 2 key areas that we look at. The first are the federal laws, and we talked about that in one of the opening slides, talking about the Federal Voting Rights Act. And there are 2 main components to the Federal Voting Rights Act that are pertinent to the process of districting. First of all, you have to have generally equal population within the districts that you draw. So the rule of thumb here is that the population difference from the largest district to the smallest district can be no greater than 10%. And there can be no racial gerrymandering associated with that.
No what?
Racial gerrymandering. So, and the second component are what we call traditional redistricting principles. Now, we talk about keeping communities together. So are there particular neighborhoods or communities that have a shared socioeconomic interest, or maybe areas that are impacted by either city or county policies in the same way that you'd want to keep together? The districts also have to be contiguous, and they have to have visible boundaries, so they can either be natural or man-made, so you can have boundaries like mountains, rivers, streams, major highways, those types of things. The districts also have to be compact, and when we talk about compactness, that means you don't bypass one group of people to get to a further group of people. Finally, this area has the potential for planned future growth. So if we know, for example, a particular area of the district might have significant growth over the next 10 years, you can plan for that in your districts and slightly underfill that district where you know significant growth is going to take place, so that district can grow into that area.
But only within the 10%.
Correct, yes. Yes, it has to be within the 10%. And that's an important consideration. I'm glad you brought that up. These are, in a sense, rank ordered. So the federal laws, when we talk about equal population and no racial gerrymandering, those take precedent over some of the other traditional redistricting principles.
So there are conflicts?
They're not necessarily conflicts, but let's say, for example, there's a reason for for splitting a community for either Federal Voting Rights Act requirements or equal population requirements, that would take precedent over keeping that community together. So in terms of the timelines and next steps, you've probably read that there's been a pretty significant delay in the release of the census data. If this were 2010, we would have had the census data back in April or May. And it was the US Census released their data on the 12th of August. The state said that they were going to have their data ready by September 20th, and they sort of met their deadline. They released a data set on September 20th, but come to find out the data set wasn't actually usable and they had lots of errors in it. So they released a usable data set on September 27th. We are going through the process right now of looking through the 2020 data and applying it to your district, and we'll be able to be having that hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, so we can start seeking input for potential district maps as well as feedback from the board on that. So the final slide here, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions, is a more detailed schedule of our timeline and the key public hearings and dates. So the first public hearing, and remember the first two hearings are pre-map hearings. So we talk about getting feedback on neighborhoods, communities, and talk a little bit about generally the demographics. Those will be on November 17th and December 8th. We will be asking in January 22 to have comments back from the public regarding the maps. And then we'll have two hearings on January 12th and February 9th regarding those maps, where we'll present the maps, ask for feedback. We can revise those maps during February, and then we'll have a final hearing on March 9th of 2022 for the board to adopt the district map. The most important deadline is April 17th of 2022. Because you guys are in a November election cycle, April 17th is the last day and the deadline that the map has to be submitted at that point to the San Bernardino County Registrar of Voters. And for the purposes of the next elections, and we obviously have an election coming up in November of 22, for both November of 2022 and November of 2024 and those following years, the map that we adopt will apply. So with that, we appreciate your time and would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Do we have any requests to speak on this item?
We have no request.
Okay, thank you. This is the time for the board to comment. Please ask your question, make your remarks. When I call your name, Director Williams.
Thank you very much. Is there a possibility I can get some copies of what you've shown on the screen here tonight?
It's also in our, on the agenda as well
Is
on
it?
the website, yeah.
Okay.
In the staff report. but-
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, should I send that to you? Yes. Okay, I'll make sure you got it.
Director Luke?
Can you describe a little more detail what community, I'm sure there'll be more on this, but communities of interest, what those might be, what might be considered?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a community of interest, it has sort of two steps. So the first is think about a neighborhood, okay? And a neighborhood could be identified in a multitude of different ways. You could have a neighborhood that has a natural boundary, so think of, you're up against the mountains or rivers or streams, those type of things. You could have an unnatural boundary. Think about neighborhoods that are defined by major streets or a canal or something like that. You take that idea of a neighborhood, and it also could be a particular landmark. So think an area around the downtown, an area around a school or a park, those types of things. Think of your traditional way of you would define a neighborhood. A community of interest takes that one step further. It says it's a geographic area plus an area that has a shared socioeconomic or interest that's associated with that. And that could come in multiple different forms. It could be an area that has a particular way that is similarly impacted by either city or county policies, or there's multiple different ways that you can define that, and it's broad based. But think about, like I said, geographic area and something on top of that is similarly either has similar values or similarly impacted by policies.
The last note up there on your slide said preserve core of existing area, which we don't have currently, so that.
Yes.
That would apply if you were.
If you're redistricting,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Then it also talks about continuity of office, respecting the voter's choice, so.
Yes.
What is that related?
That's a good question. So when we're talking about that, one of the other things that will have to be determined in the process is what we call the sequence of elections, okay? So some of the board members here are up in 2022, some of them are up in 2024. When you go to districts, there's two steps to the final districting process. You define which geographic areas are going to be your districts, but then you also have to think about what your sequence of elections are going to be. So which one of those districts are up in 2022, which one of those are up in 2024. And that's a policy decision of the board, but one of the things that we think about in that process is there, you have essentially a current cadence of, who are up in 2022 currently and who are going to be up in 2024. That can be something to consider when you think about your districts.
Thank you.
Okay, Director DeMonico.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. We'll be establishing districts, there'll be new districts, but both of the cities we represent already vote by district.
Mm-hmm.
The school board is looking to vote by district.
Mm-hmm.
I believe IEUA votes by district, although they're much larger.
Yes.
How does that impact our districting? Is our districting completely independent from those? Because if we use their districts and combine them, we may have population imbalances because of the way it's drawn. So ours would be completely independent of theirs, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, I understood that.
Yes, it would be independent, but, one of the things that you can think of too, for example, both Chino and Chino Hills right now are going through their redistricting process, and there's been, in both of those instances, have had some pretty significant public testimony on what they think their communities of interest are, so that might be something that you might want to consider too when you're talking about communities of interest.
And because we represent both cities, we basically have twice the population and all that, so their communities would have to be combining them to develop our own communities. Because we couldn't take each community separately,
Sure.
it would be 5 districts.
Yes.
And then another question is, are we limited on the amount of districts we can have? As
Tech-
a special district?
I'll defer to Jeff.
You would need to go through the process of increasing the board members before you change the number of districts, because currently it's a 5-member district.
And if we were to do that, then we'd have to redraw it as 7. And I don't know, it's just a question I've had before. And how big can a special district board be? Can you go to a maximum of 7 or?
I believe it's 7. I can't remember if it also allows for a larger 9. I can look at that and get back to you.
And the only reason I ask that is if for some reason we were ever to grow, and I doubt that would happen, but if that were to happen, what are our options? And I think it's important to know that up front before we go into this, so, well, thank you.
Is that all your questions?
For now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice President Krieger.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for being here. The city of Chino Hills is going to have on their website a map that the public can use to redraw or draw their own kind of maps, and it'll give them the demographics, so I guess it'll let them know whether it turns out right or not. Are we going to have that same option, or are we not?
Yes,
Are you the one doing? Are you guys the one doing Chino Hills as well?
Yes, and actually, I'm personally the staff member who's doing the redistricting for both Chino and Chino Hills. So yes, I'm very familiar with that. Yes, so both of those cities are using. So there's 2 options. Both of those cities are using what's called District R. It's a tool that actually the University of Tufts put together, and it's. In my opinion, it's a lot more user-friendly than some of the other GIS mapping tools, and it's really user-friendly in the fact that it's basically you have your district and it has the census blocks broken out, and you use a paintbrush to click on here are the areas that I want to add into a particular district. Both of them are using that, and yes, that's an option for you guys to consider too, if you'd like to offer that.
Okay. That's all my understanding is that the continuity of office question that Harvey was asking, that because we're currently in office, our residence addresses can be considered for those maps. Is that correct?
It's not something that we encourage, but again, it's something that when you're talking about district sequencing, yes, I mean, we can certainly.
So if John and I live next door to each other, that's when it creates a problem.
Yes, and there have been instances exactly that. I mean, there are some cities in San Bernardino County that literally have that issue where you have council members who were literally next door. So,
Okay.
and there are some instances in that where it's impossible to separate people.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so the only question I have, I understand everything, and I'm glad that we've kind of been keeping up on this for quite a few years, is in order to get that other, I've had to work with GIS data and maps, and I know how horrible it is. In order to get that on our website, is that something that we would need to vote on? Is that something, Chief, that's a part, like, just to make sure, I know there's no action on this item tonight, but to make sure that it's something that we offer, you know, if that's the board's desire, how do we
Does that
move
cost
forward
more?
with that?
So in terms of cost, I have to go back and look at the contract. And we'll,
Just tell us it's included.
I believe it was included. We,
Okay,
in-
okay.
at least in the authorization, I don't know if it was included,
Okay.
specifically called out in the contract, but I believe the board authorized it when you approved
When
the
we
contract.
first, okay.
We'll
Okay,
confirm.
it's been a little while, okay, thank you. All right, okay.
Can I ask one follow-up
Of course,
question?
you can
John-
ask as many questions as you want, this is your
Jeffy,
time.
Jeff, your response to John straightened up. So can the city boundaries be considered as communities of interest, or I thought I heard you say no, but.
in terms of city boundaries,
Right, could those be considered as communities
I
of
mean,
interest?
if you wanted to if you wanted to call an entire city a community, I guess, but it would that might be a little bit larger than.
Oh, but I
what we
mean,
would-
obviously not the whole city, but can that factor into what we consider as a community of interest? It might be split into 2 or 3 districts, but can the,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, but recognize too that when we're talking about a community of interest, the idea here is it's something that it's a neighborhood and area that you want to keep together in one district. And so if you have too large of a geographic area that you wanted to call a community, then that kind of it would
Right.
defeat the purpose of having that, since you'd have to split that up for population. Yes.
Yeah, I think what he's looking at is more of, like College Park might be a community of interest. Carbon
The canyon.
Canyon
Yep.
might be a
Preserve.
community of interest, the Preserve might be a community of interest.
Butterfield Ranch.
Butterfield Ranch could be a
Yep.
community of
But we
interest.
would have to combine some of those communities too, because
Right.
of their size.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, but that's all stuff to look at.
Yeah, it's not that you have to have just, you know, you could have multiple communities of interest in one district. It's just, if you identify those, if there are no Federal Voting Rights Act reasons why you have to split those up, then there's a reason to keep those together.
okay.
I have a follow-up, please. My question is if one district, say, doesn't get somebody that runs for the office, what transpires then? What goes on?
So you're saying if there's,
If there's 5 districts.
and no one currently on the board represents that district, is that what you're asking?
Or nobody runs for that position, yeah, there's nobody that's running for that district's position, so to speak. Cause there's 5
Mhm.
districts, and only a person in that district can run, is that correct?
Yes.
So if there's nobody from that district runs, there's gonna be an opening,
Mhm.
and how is that generally handled? You never run into that problem, I take it.
Well, So I can give you an example. We're working with another city nearby here who's doing districting now. And one of the maps that they're considering would have a vacancy where there's no current city council member sitting there. So then that would create a vacancy for whenever that sequence, either 2022 or 2024, and then it would allow anyone who's within that district who's eligible to run. And I guess if you're asking are you saying if in that instance, when you get to November of 2022, if there's no one who runs, is that, just want to clarify, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Then I would assume that would go to, and that would be a Jeff Ballinger question.
Appointment, an appointment,
An
and
appointment.
or.
That would assume go to the.
I
I believe it's an appointment by the
It's
board,
an appointment, yes.
and if the board doesn't make the appointment, then the
Then
board of
the county.
supervisors.
Yeah, that was what I was curious about.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else have any other follow-up questions? Okay,
Happy we had the presentation.
yes,
Thank you.
yes, thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much, I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of you very soon here.
Yep, and November 17th will be the first hearing.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you. When would that be on the website? November 17th?
When you're talking about for
As
the,
far as for us to be able to look at it, maybe attach to our website to be able to.
yeah, it's a question of how quickly we can turn around the data. Part of the reason why I can't give you an exact date is that we have control over processing your data, but then we have to send that to a third party to actually run that through District R, and we don't have a finite time as to when they turn that around.
Didn't I see on the list of dates that it would be January when the maps would be presented?
Would be due, so in terms of getting comments back,
That's when the
January
public
12th.
already plays around with it
Yeah.
and gives us
Yes.
their comments back.
Okay, I thought that was when the maps were to be presented.
they'll be presented at a later time.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you list
Where?
everything
No more questions?
that you look at? In other words, the demographics of ethnics and,
Yes, so all that data is included, so you can look at citizen voting age, population, and any of the breakdowns that the census provides would be included in that. And the census actually does some pretty interesting data too. It even goes beyond particular ethnic and race data. They have data on even things like, income, percentage of people who are renting with, and that goes all the way down to by census block. So yeah, there's a lot of data associated with that, which will be part of the mapping tool.
great, thank you.
Okay.
And board, in answer to board member DeMonico's question, the fire protection district law allows for boards of up to 11 board members. The process would require a vote of the district electorate though, so we'd have to submit it to the voters to make that change.
11.
Yeah,
I wonder how our chief would feel about that.
I don't know, I have enough problem fighting with 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Need to build more seats up there.
Couldn't afford the stipends.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, item number 11, overview on AB 361, open meeting, state and local agencies, teleconferencing, and possible direction to staff. Purpose is to provide the board directors with an overview of Assembly Bill 361 regarding teleconferencing of meetings of local agencies and seek direction from the board. Report by Jeff Ballinger.
Good evening. Good evening again, President Ramos-Evinger and board members. We're seeking direction from the board on how the board would like staff to proceed with future meetings of the board as well as subcommittees of the district in light of AB 361. As the board is aware, even before the COVID pandemic, the Brown Act allowed for teleconferencing of meetings of the board or subcommittees. However, the Brown Act imposed certain restrictions on those teleconference meetings. Notably, the agenda had to be posted at all of the locations. So in addition to being posted here at the district, if a board member was at home, the agenda would have to be posted at that home location. Each teleconference location had to be identified ahead of time, so we had to know where the board member would be so that we could include it on the agenda that's posted at the district headquarters and at that remote location. Each location had to be available to the public to attend, so if a board member was participating at home, they had to essentially open up their home to members of the public in case a member of the public conceivably wanted to attend at that remote location. In addition, at least a quorum of the board had to be located within the district. So if if 3 of the board members were outside of the district, you could not hold a teleconference meeting under the Brown Act before the COVID pandemic. During the COVID pandemic, the governor issued an executive order that relaxed these requirements of teleconference meetings. And so we and other local agencies could hold teleconference meetings without meeting these requirements. However, at the end of September, that executive order expired, and the legislature knew that at some point that executive order would expire, and so they passed Assembly Bill 361, AB 361. In many respects, it follows the executive order in terms of liberalizing and allowing for teleconference meetings. However, it requires certain findings to be made by the board if the board wants to hold teleconference meetings under 361. Notably, the board would have to make a finding that either state or county officials are recommending social distancing, so you'd have to make that finding, or you'd have to make a finding that because of the COVID emergency, or whatever emergency might come forward at a future date, that it presents an imminent threat to holding meetings in person. So the board would need to make one of those 2 findings if you want to take advantage of AB 361. Under AB 361, should the board make those findings, there are certain requirements that would still need to be met. Notably, notice of the means by which members of the public can participate would have to be included on the agenda. So we currently do that. We tell members of the public how they would participate in the meeting electronically, either by telephone or by a computer system. In addition, we'd have to include an opportunity for all of the members of the public to call in and participate in real time. Some agencies during COVID were requiring members of the public to provide their public testimony in writing ahead of time. AB 361 says that local public agencies can no longer do that, that we have to essentially allow for real-time, either telephone or computer access for members of the public. In addition, if for some reason there's a technological glitch and the members of the public are not able to participate electronically, the board meeting basically has to stop, and the board can't take action until the technological issue is resolved. In addition, under AB 361, the board has to make continual those findings every 30 days. So if you want to continue holding meetings under AB 361, the board would have to make the findings that either the state or county officials are recommending social distancing, or the board believes that holding in-person meetings would constitute an imminent threat. And so that would be essentially a standing item on the board's agenda. It can be done by simple motion. It doesn't have to be an ordinance or resolution. Most agencies that are contemplating using AB 361 are simply putting it on as a standing agenda item to make those findings. And then finally, the last thing for the board to consider is AB 361 doesn't really specify whether, if a main legislative body such as the board makes the findings, whether that applies to all of the various subcommittees, and some agencies have commissions and other legislative bodies. So the board has different options in terms of whether the board wants to use AB 361 at all, B, whether it wants to require AB 361 to be used by subcommittees, or whether the board wants to allow subcommittees to make the findings themselves. All of those are options for the board. So you could either make it applicable just to the board, you could make it applicable to the various committees of the board, or you could leave it to the committees of the board to make the decision on their own. Finally, it bears noting that even without AB 361, the board and the subcommittees can still hold teleconference meetings under the old requirements of the Brown Act. You just would have to meet the requirements in terms of posting the agenda at the locations, knowing where those locations are, and then the majority of the legislative bodies staying within the district. So We don't want to lose sight of the fact that the Brown Act and its teleconference requirements and provisions still exist. This just makes it a little bit easier should the board wish to do so under emergency situations. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Okay. Do we request any requests to speak for this?
We have no request to speak.
Okay, thank you. Director Williams?
Thank you. I don't think I have any questions on this. Thank you.
Okay, Director DeMonico?
No questions.
And I'm sorry, I missed you. Director Leif?
No questions, I appreciate the information.
Okay, so everyone's ready, because Director Krieger, or Vice President Krieger has questions.
So I have a lot of questions on this. So I looked at this as well. My concern is if one of us, if the chief, if somebody that we need to have here has to be quarantined, which is not unlikely to happen, how do we still allow them to participate in a meeting via teleconference if we haven't already instituted AB 361?
So it depends on if we're talking about a staff member or if we're talking about a board member. The teleconference provisions of the Brown Act really apply to situations where board members are calling in or zooming in to a meeting. If it's a staff member or a member of the public or a consultant, those folks can call in, they can zoom in, and the Brown Act isn't implicated. But if you're asking how we can maintain flexibility in the event the board members or a subcommittee and its board members need to quarantine, or they don't want to come in because somebody, they're concerned about safety, the best way to do that would be for the board to make findings and say that it's applicable to the board and all of the subcommittees, and then we would simply put the required findings on every board agenda, so you make those findings every 30 days, every monthly regular board meeting, and you would make it applicable to the subcommittees of the board so that we can include that language on those agendas, and if we need to provide Zoom meetings, it'll already be there on the agenda.
And does AB 361 have an expiration date?
It does. It expires in 2024, I believe.
That was my understanding as well. In regards to our subcommittee meetings, many of the people up here, Sarah and John in particular, already do subcommittees with other JPAs or other parts of our agencies, and instead of flying to Sacramento, they get on a Zoom call on a regular basis. Would we have to find that finding for them as well for that stuff?
Those
Yes,
aren't
sir.
governmental agencies, those are associations like CSD.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I mean, some of those agencies they attempt to, I know the League of Cities, they attempt to meet the Brown Act requirements. I'm not sure if CSDA has those same goals, but if it's not a public agency, then they're not legally required to. Again, even for those regional or statewide agencies that are public agencies, theoretically, if a majority of the board, whoever that is within the district, whatever that is, if it's statewide, then it can probably fall under the original provisions of the Brown Act for teleconferencing.
Yeah, our finance committee meeting and planning and HR committees over the last year have been meeting via teleconference, and it's made it so much easier to do. And maybe I'm not the only one that thinks that, but I'm still working, Sarah's still working, Harvey's still working, so instead of taking hours off work to stay here in the district, we're able to go to our office and do it from there. It just makes it easier.
Or stay home.
Or stay home and do it, and it makes it easier. So I'm wondering, how do we continue to do that within the provisions? And once again, it almost seems like you say that we need to have it on a continuous 30-day for AB 361 to be in effect?
You can. Again, the other option is to allow each committee to make that decision on its own. So if the board doesn't want to make the findings for itself or for all of the committees, it could simply authorize each committee to make that decision on its own. In that case, each committee would have to make the findings of either state or county recommendations or a health risk. And then that subcommittee would have to make those regular findings every 30 days.
Okay, well, is this something that we have to agendize to discuss at the next meeting, or can I make a motion on that now?
There's no action tonight, right?
There's no action, we're just seeking direction. So AB 361 says that if a public agency wants to use the benefits of 361, within 30 days after your first meeting, which is tonight, the legislative body needs to make those findings. So we're kind of asking for direction in terms of how you want that to occur
Okay.
in the month of
I'll
November,
let you,
either for the board or for subcommittees.
You can get started if you'd like, yeah.
Is there a reason we would not wanna proceed forward with?
Some agencies might decide they want to hold their meetings in person and not use teleconference, others
No, I
might
mean,
just.
if we're gonna hold if we hold our meetings in person, this is just a tool
for backup.
for backup for in-person meeting. It's a good
That's all it
for-
is.
For in-person meetings. So, I'm not suggesting we do all our meetings on Zoom meetings, I don't like Zoom meetings, but why would we not wanna do this for a backup for being able to conduct our meetings and allow the full board participation at those times when, and it's very rare, but it's happened in the past, where board members called in from another area and participated in the board meeting.
You could do that, you could direct staff to simply provide the information on the agenda, have it set up in the event one or more board members need to Zoom in or teleconference in, and have it set up as a backup, and that way, if the day before the meeting, one or more board members can't or doesn't want to make it in person, we'd have that flexibility, that's another option.
And that's what I thought this was going to accomplish, so I'm a proponent of that, go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly, I'd like to see this on our agenda, just on a go-forward basis under public health emergency, and, you know, we could use fires, we could use a plethora of statewide emergencies, but we could do it under public health for now. It just have it as a placeholder under consent on an ongoing basis, that's how I like to see it. And not, you know, it should be the exception to the rule, it shouldn't be the rule, and I'd like it to apply to all of our subcommittees that we're part of.
Well, in the case of emergency, one or more of us can be caught out of the area or out of the state,
Correct.
and still be able to call in to help conduct business.
And if,
Be part of,
so if that does happen, what kind of technology do we have to have in place? Now, if we do the whole thing remotely, then there has to be a way for the public to interact. But if just one board member was doing it, then the public still can show up in person, is that correct?
Yes, if somebody shows up in person, that's always allowed. If we use AB 361 and we teleconference in one board member, then if somebody wants to call in and do their public comment electronically, then we have to allow them to do that in real time. So
And
they could come in person, but if they want to call in, we have to provide them that opportunity.
I'm just making sure that our IT people are ready for that. Yes, fantastic.
Okay, so there's no vote, but we need direction, so.
That's my direction.
Okay, well, there's other,
Wait,
hold on.
wait.
Let's get the rest of the board members and their questions.
I'm understanding this can only be applied if there's a state of emergency that exists. Is that not what it says?
That is what it says, and technically there is still a state of emergency in California. The governor's original order declaring an emergency is still in effect. His order dealing with the Brown Act and relaxing those rules has expired, but the original declaration of emergency still exists.
So who can declare a state of emergency? Is it only the state, is it federal?
It's only a state declared emergency.
State
oh, for
declared.
361,
So
local
that has to
emergency
be,
would not apply.
Correct.
so if we say we wanna implement 361, there has to be a state issued state of
I
emergency.
thought it said local health as well was.
Local health is where if the local health official is recommending social distancing. So if either the state or local health officer is recommending social distancing, that's one of the two findings that a board can
We
make.
can't make that finding per
You,
se.
you can't
right?
make it's not a local emergency,
Right.
but there has to be both a state declared emergency and either state or local officials are recommending social distancing, or the board determines that there's an imminent threat of holding in-person meetings.
Okay.
And now, it was my understanding that Newsom had said that meetings shall be held in public again. Was he just saying they can be held in public again? I was under the impression that he said they shall be held in public again. The meetings for public meetings like this one and so on.
You know, I'm not sure what statement of his you're referring to, but his action by allowing his original executive order dealing with Brown Act to expire, that action paved the way for in-person meetings, but then AB 361 was adopted by the legislature and he signed it. So he has allowed, and the legislature has allowed for remote meetings using this process.
So at this time, we're still able to do the remote meetings if we choose.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So I just want to be sure, so Mike's proposing that we
Add this.
keep that flexibility, is where you're going with your motion? Okay, yeah, okay.
So as, let's say the governor, he rescinds that order, do we have to then we just pull it off easy as take it off our consent calendar? It just immediately becomes null and void,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
But,
right.
but this order also helps us if we have, and hope that we don't have it, a huge fire in Chino State Park again, and the governor declares a state of emergency, and, you know, the smoke's too bad here, whatever, it allows us still to be able to meet as a body, not necessarily in person, or one person, you know, won't be able to make it, that's all.
There's no downside to having this.
No, I mean, there's some work that needs to be done on the staff and technological side, but otherwise, no.
And they're excited about it.
I think they're thrilled. Okay,
Thank you, Jeff.
so, the direction then, we want to place it on our consent calendar, is that what I'm feeling for
So we just
everybody?
give direction, or is there actually? a
Just
vote?
direction,
Just
there's
direction,
no
we don't need a
vote.
vote as long
Just
as there's
direction.
general consensus. Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
so, thank you.
Item number 12, California Special Districts Association Committees. Purpose is for the board directors to approve board member participation in CSDA committees for the year 2022. President Ramos Eminger and members of the board, as you know, CSDA solicits interest forms annually for CSDA committees and expert feedback teams. CSDA has 6 active committees and 7 expert feedback teams. President Ramos Evinger currently serves on the Professional Development Committee and the Member Services Committee, and Director DeMonico currently serves on the Legislative Committee and the Fiscal Committee. CSDA's process for appointing to committees is to submit interest forms directly to their website, so by each interested party. Notification of selected participants usually takes place by the end of November of that year. CSDA does not require board action to participate. Simply, if you're interested, you go online and you submit your nomination form. However, the board policies does require a board approval for reimbursement for those for that participation. It is recommended that the board of directors approve fire district board members' representation on CSDA committees and expert feedback teams as appointed by CSDA for 2022.
Okay, thank you so much. Did we receive any requests to speak on this?
We have no request to speak.
Okay, this is the time for the board to comment. When I call your name, please make your remarks. Director Williams?
Thank you. I think that we should participate.
Thank you. Director Luke?
I just appreciate the two of you serving on various committees. I wish I had a little more time to be able to do that, but yeah, I'm in support of this, and I appreciate you guys' efforts.
Okay, thank you. Director DeMonico.
No, I agree, there's a lot of value to our participation in those committees, and I'm volunteering to do it again.
Yes. Vice President Krieger.
I concur with everything everybody said, and like Director Luth, I appreciate the two of you continuing to participate.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I agree. CSDA is great. We've partnered with them on a lot of items over the past year and during the pandemic, and was able to get a lot of information. So they're definitely a value of us being on these. So I will now, if I can have a motion, request a motion on this.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. And Director Williams,
I vote yes.
Director Luke,
Yes.
Director DeMonico.
Yes.
Vice President Krieger.
Yes.
And myself, 5-0. Okay, next we have the fire chief's comments. Fire Chief Williams, will you please state your comments?
Thank you, President Sarah Ramos, Secretary, appreciate it. Under board activities and,
Chief, could you speak up a little bit, please?
sure. Under
There we go.
board activities and public relations, AMR has requested that we continue to assist them until July 1st, 2022 with ambulance services. Our suppression personnel continue to staff 2 ambulances 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This staffing is in addition to backfilling the 6 vacancies that we currently have. Backfilling for fire assignments and backfilling for our injured personnel. We want to thank them for their commitment to providing exceptional service and safeguarding the community, as well as their continued sacrifice. The fire district hosted a gathering of the Chino Valley community to honor those that lost their lives at the tragic events of September 11, 2001. This year marked the 20th anniversary of the tragedy. The event was well attended by board members, local dignitaries, staff, and community members. On Monday, September 27th, President Ramos-Evinger, Vice President Krieger, and I attended the City of Chino quarterly meeting with Mayor Ulloa and City Manager Ballantyne. On Wednesday, September 29th, Chino Valley Fire District personnel participated in the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department Blue Mass at the St. Paul the Apostle Church. On Thursday, September 30th, President Ramos-Evinger, Vice President Krieger, and I attended the City of Chino Hills quarterly meeting with Mayor Joes and City Manager Montgomery. The Chino Relay for Life took place on October 2nd at Ayala Park from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Vice President Krieger and I attended the opening ceremony. We hosted a Fall Sharps collection on Saturday, October 9th, and we collected 4.5 55-gallon sharp drums of sharp waste. The 2021 San Bernardino County State of the County event took place on October 6th in Ontario. Vice President Krieger, Director DeMonico, Director Luth, Deputy Chief Cook, and I were in attendance. Great event. The annual chamber installation dinner is currently taking place this evening. This event fell on the same day as our board meeting this year. Battalion Chief Joe DeSoto is currently attending and will present the award recipients with certificates on behalf of the fire district. Organizational items of interest. On Thursday, September 23rd, I attended an ambulance JPA meeting via Zoom to discuss ambulance services in San Bernardino County, and those continue to go in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 different meetings a week to discuss where we're going and where the county's going with regards to ambulances. On Tuesday, September 28th, Deputy Chief Cook, Deputy Chief Skibar, and I attended a meeting with Assemblyman Freddie Rodriguez to discuss the current ambulance services within San Bernardino County. On Wednesday, October 6th, and on Tuesday, October 12th, Legal Counsel and I met with Chino Hills City Manager Ben Montgomery to discuss the details of Fire Station 68. The district will be applying for the $100 million state COVID-19 fiscal relief fund for independent special districts. Applications are due by October 15th, and we're on track to make sure that we get our application in on time. And then under recruitment, I have a recruitment update. Our HR director couldn't be here this evening, so on her behalf, we have our final round of testing. This is for firefighter paramedic. Our final round of testing and Chiefs orals were last Wednesday. 8 candidates will be moving into the background phase of the next election process.
Eight out of how many?
Let's see, we took in 164 applications, we invited 95, and we actually tested 45. So, sounds like approximately half didn't even show up.
So 8 out of how many?
45
8 out of 45 would have moved.
initially. For Battalion Chief Internal Promotional, we had 7 applicants completed testing on Tuesday of this week. Chief's interviews are tentatively scheduled for October 27th. Auxiliary Worker, we have the first panel interview last Thursday. 4 candidates will be moving to the final interview scheduled for October 21st. And finally, we go to our upcoming events. We have our annual open house event scheduled for Saturday, October 16th at the Training Center from 9 to noon. We have the ASBCSD membership meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 18th at 6 o'clock in Rancho Cucamonga. Our Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 25th at 8 a.m. And on October 28th, we'll be hosting a San Bernardino County Fire Chiefs Association meeting at the Training Center. And that concludes my Chief's comments for this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the time for board comments. Please provide your comments when I call your name, Director Williams.
Thank you very much. At the last meeting, Sarah, you made a comment, and it was very hurtful, and I didn't understand it. And what you said is that I couldn't talk to the other people in the district because you were protecting the employees. Protecting the employees from what? It must be remembered that I worked here for 33 years. There were no incidents. And there have been no incidents. I sat here and talked to Chief Shackelford one night, and I asked him, I says, have I made any of these threats? No. Have I gone after anybody? No. And yet you sat there and you said that you're protecting the people. And I don't understand why you made that comment. It was mean, and I don't understand. And so please tell me why you would make a comment like that. That's not appropriate. And the other thing that I have is I asked our counsel, Jeff Ballinger, to show me how a fire board can mute a board member. And I also asked him to show me when votes that we take in closed session can be done. He said that sometimes it can be done, and I asked him to show me when that could be done, because my information is any vote behind in closed session has to come out and be stated in open session. So I'm going to ask our counsel, have you got those things for me tonight? Jeff?
I have not put those in writing, no.
Okay. I'm asking you to get those for me again. And I think it's very important that you do that. It's not out of line to ask you to do this as our counsel. And the other thing is I'd like you to remember, you're counsel for the whole board, not 4 members, but 5. So I would appreciate it very much if you would do that. And I had a meeting, or talked with the chief. He called me up, and I talked with the chief for a bit. It was recorded. And the thing I'd like to know is, where do those recordings go? Who has a right to listen to them? And why are they done? Can anybody tell me that? And I have a right to know, because I've been told that I'm a threat. I've been told that I've made advances toward people that are wrong in regards to in a threatening manner and that type of thing, and yet when I asked Chief Shackelford about it, everything he stated was, no, I haven't done that, no, I haven't done that, no, I haven't done that. So what is going on? I'm getting two things here, so let me know why I'm a threat. Because I know in the meeting that I had with the chief, hope you don't mind me saying this, but I know that the chief is wanting us to be a cohesive board and act like regular board members and everybody be treated the same. And you're putting a burden on him by telling him that I can't talk to people and that type of thing. So let's try and get this behind us. Thank you very much.
Director Luth.
Thank you. Let's see here, the 9/11 event, again, a wonderful event. Appreciate everybody, whoever's all behind putting that together. Tremendous, well done, very, very nice and well attended. Attended several Chino Hills Council meetings, a County Airport Commission meeting, State of the County. That was well done. Chairman Hagman did a great job, very, very well done. Charlie, you and the Fire Safe Council, job well done. Appreciate you being here and giving us that report. Look forward to seeing everybody at the open house. And I think that's all I've got, so thank you.
Thank you. Director DeMonico.
Yeah, I want to concur, 9/11, I thought the ceremony was phenomenal and it was really impressive and, gosh, it brings back those sad memories of that day, but to honor the fallen from 9/11 is, that was the 20th anniversary. And even though it was 20 years ago, it seems like it was just yesterday, but putting that together, everybody put that together, phenomenal job. I mean, it was impressive. The ladder truck there with the big screen TV on top, pipes and drums, and really, really a nice, blessed event, and really appreciate all the effort that went into that. I too I attended Chino Council meetings, the IEUA meeting, and did listen in on the San Bernardino County Supervisors meeting, although 9/10 of their meeting is public communications and people complaining about everything, so I'm really appreciative we don't have that 3-hour line out the door for us. But, boy, they sure complain a lot out there. Other than that, that concludes my comments, and thank you.
Okay, Vice President Krieger.
Yeah, Chino Valley School District, Hidden Trails Elementary is now a blue ribbon school, so congratulations to them for that. And lots and lots and lots of communication about the COVID mandates for masking for kids in schools and what might or might not be coming down as far as mandated vaccinations of students. So lots of conversation about that. It's really in the state's hand, but the school district is taking the brunt of the comments on that. Chino Hills, they're dealing with development with the ADU units that the governor mandated that makes no sense, where you can subdivide a residential home and build a couple duplexes and nobody can say anything about that. And they voted last night. They had quite a conversation about having a flag contest. So they're going to be designing or putting it out for the public to design a new city flag to use. So that should be done by the end of those. Anybody can submit it, and it's due by the end of December. As the chief mentioned, I attended the Relay for Life opening ceremonies. That was great. Always a great event, and glad to see people out there. State of the County was a great event. I really enjoyed it and enjoyed the concert from Chase Beckham. That was extra special. Harvey and I participated just in our own time for fun, the wine walk, and that was truly a great time. And Harvey, thanks for coming out and volunteering with me for that. That was a lot of fun. Attended Chairman Hagman's open house. The 9/11 ceremonies, everybody said, absolutely fantastic. Really special event. It really is. The 9/11 ceremony is just something truly special. Attended both of the quarterly city meetings with the chief and with Sarah. And Carlos, is this your first meeting with us?
Yes, it is.
Well, welcome aboard, and we're happy to see you up here, and happy that you're joining us at this. And
Thank you.
you know, I know you helped us out earlier tonight in closed session as well, so we appreciate that. And once again, just welcome aboard with us. I'm really looking forward to working more closely with you. That's it.
Okay, all right, so I'm just gonna briefly just touch, Director Williams, some of your censures, the majority of your censures are why the recording, why you're unable to speak with staff, and I'd really love you if you can please make sure that you submit your agenda item before the deadline for next month's meeting, so we can talk about those. I'd love to talk about those, and let's see, let's see how we can go about making some change. And we all want to be a cohesive board and work. So if you can please just make sure that you turn that in, that would be wonderful. I appreciate that. So quickly, congratulations to Sandy for 20 years. I've had the pleasure of knowing her just also as a beautiful person, friend. She's a wonderful person and a great hard worker. I've known her for a long time. And also Carlos, thank you for everything and welcome aboard up here. And you're going to see how much fun it can be at times. No, it's great, always great. I attended Supervisor Hagman's open house, our 9/11 ceremony. I just couldn't stop talking about it. And the feedback that I received from community members too is how, classy, how it was just amazing. We just did a wonderful job. They were very, very appreciative. I attended both council meetings of Chino. I had a meeting with our auditors and finance committee meeting, a quarterly meeting with both the city of Chino and Chino Hills. We did that. Attended Deputy Atkinson's retirement. That same day I attended the Stroptimus open house. It was their 100th anniversary, and I had the pleasure of giving a certificate to the Stroptimus on behalf of the fire district, so I was really happy to do that. And our fire safe council meeting, and that's about all. I just want to thank everyone again for wearing pink and for all your hard work. Oh, Chief, yes, excuse me, Chief has a quick.
I'm sorry, there's one thing that I forgot to mention. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. We have our union president here. There was a very large showing from the union body at the Relay for Life making pancakes for the community. So thank you, Pete, and your group.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wasn't able to attend, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Like always, they're, stepping up and helping us in the community. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting to the regular Board of Directors of the Chino Valley Independent Fire District to be held on Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. Thank you.